So Jammu and Kashmir went to polls today in the second phase. A team of diplomats from foreign countries like the US, Mexico, South Korea, etc., about a dozen plus or so countries, were there on an observer mission. Now, this is not the first time that foreign observers have gone to Jammu and Kashmir, even in the aftermath of Abrogation 370. But even before that, for a number of elections in the past, foreign observers have gone to not just Jammu and Kashmir but other parts of India as well. It is part of an ongoing exercise that the Election Commission has had for the last 20 years. But some political honchos, some politicians in the valley in particular have taken exception to it. One of them is the National Conference leader Omar Abdullah, the former chief minister, who says this is almost like seeking foreign validation for the elections in Kashmir, and that the Modi government, he is accusing the Modi government of seeking some kind of foreign stamp of approval after the abrogation of Article 370. His contention is, while on the one hand you say you don't care about any kind of foreign interference or foreign stamp of approval as far as Kashmir is concerned, you don't care about opinion pieces that are written in the Western press, but at the same time, by allowing observers, you are actually looking for validation. That's his contention. Well, the government and the supporters of the government, the central government that is, are saying that this has nothing to do about looking for validation. This is simply about setting the right narrative. And that is, this is the first time we've had an assembly election, not just in the last 5 years, not just since the abrogation of Article 370. This is the first assembly election we've had in almost a decade in the valley. It's been very peaceful. There is absolutely no major incident of violence that's been reported in the last two phases. The voter turnout is well above 60%, which is much higher than what it was in the last assembly election. If this should not be projected or must not be projected, then what should? That's the question that's coming in from the BJP and the central government. But first, let's get to the story and break it down for you.
I don't know why foreigners should be asked to check elections. When foreign governments comment, then Government of India says this is an internal matter for India. Now suddenly they want foreign observers to come and look at our elections. These are an internal matter for us. We don't need their certificate.
जिस जम्मू कश्मीर में कहा जाता था कि यहाँ चुनाव का तो बाइकाट होता है, यहाँ पर चुनाव तो अलगाववादियों और आतंकवादियों के साए में होता है, वहाँ का चुनाव जो है लोगों के पार्टिसिपेशन के साथ, लोगों के जुनून और जज्बे के साथ, लोकतंत्र के प्रति समर्पण की भावना के साथ हो रहा है।
All right, so now foreign observers are not new to Jammu and Kashmir. They have visited during times of elections and they've visited even otherwise. In October of 2019, just a few months after the abrogation of Article 370, a delegation of about 24 odd EU members of parliament visited Srinagar to assess the situation there. In January of 2020, 15 foreign envoys visited Srinagar. It was a two-day visit to assess whether normalcy is returned after the abrogation of Article 370. In February 2021, 24 foreign envoys were invited by the centre to showcase development projects in Jammu and Kashmir. In May 2023, G20 diplomats, remember India hosted the G20 summit in September of 2023, G20 diplomats visited Srinagar for a dialogue on the untapped potential of Jammu and Kashmir tourism. In fact, it was a summit on the sidelines of the G20 in the run-up to the G20 that was actually hosted in Srinagar, and this became a talking point about the return of normalcy in Kashmir. In August of 2024, a delegation of US diplomats met with Omar Abdullah in his residence in Srinagar to discuss some of the travel advisories that the US government issues periodically. Now, foreign delegations have also been invited to observe how India conducts elections. It's happened for a number of years now. In fact, the Election Commission of India runs something called an International Election Visitors Program, an IEVP, which has been in existence since 2004. For the last 20 years, from time to time, foreign observers come and observe how elections in India are conducted. As recently as April 2024, 25 global political parties were invited by the centre to have a ringside view of the Lok Sabha polls as well as the campaign. In May 2024, 75 visitors from the election bodies of at least 23 countries witnessed how the Lok Sabha elections were carried out. And like I said, this program that the Election Commission has been running since 2004, called the International Election Visitors Program, has encouraged visitors from political parties, visitors who are foreign diplomats, who serve in their respective missions here in New Delhi, to come and see how democracy functions at the grassroots level in our country. So why such a huge fuss? Why kick up such a storm? That's the question we're asking on Brass Tacks. Ajay Alok is national spokesperson of the BJP. Amitabh Dubey, national spokesperson of the Congress Party. Ifra Jan, spokesperson of the National Conference. Aarti Singh Tikku is a senior journalist who's been covering Kashmir for a number of years now. And Professor Amitabh Bhattu is Dean and Professor at the School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Let me start with the political spokespersons. Ajay Alok, the contention from Omar Abdullah and others, mainstream Valley politicians, is that the Indian government, while on the one hand, you are seeking validation, as they say, from these foreign observers by allowing them to come and observe elections here in India. On the other hand, you say, Kashmir is an integral part. We don't care about foreign interference. There should be no foreign interference. It is wholly India's integral and internal affair. Then why do you need such foreign delegations to come, observe, and perhaps validate?
See, Zaka, Kashmir is an integral part of the country, there is no doubt about it. But the perception about Kashmir since the time of independence has repeatedly been damaged by the Congress party and its so-called allies in the valley, like National Conference and all. And to show the world that yes, we are a vibrant and a live democracy and the democracy functions here at the grassroots level. And that's why we had invited and we have invited and we'll keep on inviting the foreign dignitaries to come and visit the election process altogether. Now, who doesn't want these elections to be showcased to the world? Who doesn't want? Naturally, the answer is Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't want the election to happen smoothly. It doesn't want to conduct the election. It doesn't want a peace in the valley. So, and who in India is echoing Pakistan? It's National Conference. They want to bring back 370 back again. They again want do jhanda, do samvidhan, do nishan. So all these things just create a perception, a not healthy perception of Kashmir in the outside world, which we are trying to demolish completely. And with the coming of the foreign delegates and they seeing the election and the high percentage turnout of voting in most of the areas, this leads to a perception that yes, Kashmir is a part of India and is returning back to normalcy and it will prosper.
Okay.
Look at the kind of development that Kashmir had seen, the longest bridge of the world, the Kashmir Mall coming up, G20 delegation, we intentionally did it in Srinagar because we wanted Srinagar to be known as a place where peace exists.
Okay. So let me ask Amitabh Dubey, at the end of these two phases, when a large number of the seats, particularly in Kashmir, have voted, the provisional voter turnout in this phase is well above 60%, which is much higher than what it was in the last assembly election. There have been relatively zero major incidents of violence in this particular election cycle. Are these not things, Mr. Amitabh Dubey, that need to be showcased and told to the world, especially at a time when the history of Kashmir has been beset with political violence?
So, the BJP has this unhealthy obsession with foreigners' perceptions, bringing outsiders in. Even the ISI was brought into Pathankot after the terrorist attack. But let's let that be. Just a couple of things. One is, I want you to recall, of course, we welcome the restoration of normalcy in Kashmir. It is a process that's been going on for many years under successive governments, and it continues, and this election is an example of it. I want to remind our panelists and your audience that in the 2011 Panchayat elections, election turnout was over 85%. In the 2014 Vidhan Sabha, turnout was 66%. So it's to claim that this is some miracle that the BJP has created in the last few years is inaccurate. Every day or every week, we see terrorist attacks in some or the other part of Jammu. The narrative that the period before was full of violence, and this is the only time we have seen some restoration of normalcy, is contradicted by the very facts on terrorism. In the last 5 years of the UPA, 1025 people were killed in militant and terrorist violence in Kashmir. In the last 4.5 years, 1069. So the 5-year period of the UPA at the end had fewer killings due to terrorism than the last 4.5 years of this.
No, but Mr.
government.
Dubey, I just want to add one clarification
building.
there. One
This is
clarification
narrative
there.
building,
The
not
number
facts.
of terrorist incidents, and I'm going back to the year 2019 when Article 370 was abrogated, was over 1,000. The number of terrorist incidents. The number of terrorist incidents so far in this calendar year is in double digits. So surely you cannot make the case that terrorism has not come down. Certainly by number of incidents, it has come down.
Yeah. So my point is that it had actually come down in the last 5 years of the UPA. In the first 5 years of the NDA, it actually went up and has now come down. So this cherry picking of numbers to show that the BJP has done very well is inaccurate.
No, I didn't say I didn't say those words. I didn't say that the BJP has done well or the BJP has not done well. I just wanted to point to or underline the fact that when 370 was abrogated, the narrative was that Kashmir will burn and there'll be rivers of blood and so on and so forth. Whereas 5 years down the line, the data shows, and I'm just going purely by data, the data shows the number of terror incidents has come down quite substantially.
Right. And obviously that's something that we welcome. I don't know who was making these dire forecasts. We have a very clear position on 370 as laid out in our August statement.
Okay.
Today, we are looking forward. We are looking towards the restoration of statehood. We are looking forward to the accounting of 10 years of BJP rule in this election. They are the incumbent. They must answer how J&K has the second highest youth unemployment in the country, how none of or very few of the proposals, industrial proposals they talk about have actually materialized.
Okay, so that's a separate debate, maybe not for tonight. But let me get the other guests also into the conversation. Let me ask Ifra Jan. Ifra Jan, your leader, Mr. Omar Abdullah, former Chief Minister, seems to have taken great umbrage at the fact that foreign observers are coming and observing this election. Now, in August 2024, there was a delegation from the US Embassy, the US mission here in New Delhi, that had gone and called upon Mr. Abdullah in his residence in Srinagar. They spoke about the travel advisories that the US government keeps issuing from time to time about whether to go or whether not to go to Kashmir. This is, of course, for US citizens. As far as foreign observers are concerned, I said this at the top of the program, and since you just joined some time back, the International Election Visitors Program run by the Election Commission has been in place since 2004. Various elections, general elections and state elections, including elections in Jammu and Kashmir, you have had contingents of international observers from various countries, including Bhutan, Mongolia, Philippines, countries in Africa that have from time to time come and observed Indian elections. So what is so extraordinary if they do so in Kashmir today?
I'll tell you what is extraordinary. From times immemorial, ever since the independence of our country, we have always had foreign diplomats coming and visiting our country. We've also had foreign journalists coming and visiting our country and assessing what they felt was right, what they didn't feel was right, according to them, and reported. What is happening here is that the BJP government is conducting these guided tours of these diplomats. It gets them, it takes them in a car, it then takes them exactly where they want. But on the contrary, the same government bans the entry of foreign journalists and reporting of foreign journalists from Jammu and Kashmir, because that will not be a guided tour. If you want the observation, if you want any election observation to be fair, then you do not get to choose who the judges will be. If I get to decide who the judge here will be, of who wins or loses this debate, then that is not going to be a fair assessment. Mr. Omar Abdullah was trying to and very clearly pointed out that this is not a fair assessment by anybody as long as you pick and choose who the observers are going to be. If the BJP government is truly confident of its position in Jammu and Kashmir, it should not ban the entry of foreign journalists.
But if, Mr.
That is the point he was making.
If I may ask you,
Also,
one second, just on that, shouldn't the judges, if the words that you use, the people who judge or assess the legality or the free and fair nature of this election, one second, shouldn't they be the people of Kashmir? And if the people of Kashmir have, I think today's provisional vote is at 61%, I believe
I
it'll go up.
think
It'll
you
go
are
up
the
by a couple of
one-
percentage points. Give me 10 seconds, let me finish. Shouldn't it be the people of Kashmir who are the judge of this? 61% people provisionally have turned out to vote today. Like I said, there are zero major instances of violence that have happened today or in the previous phase that happened a few days ago. Shouldn't they be the judge? Why
This is a question-
why do you think that just
Let me
some foreign
respond to
observers,
your question,
a delegation of
Sagar.
20 people coming in and watching
I
an
heard
election
you, Zak.
suddenly
I heard
makes
you.
them judge, jury and executioner?
Yeah. Let's begin by the fact that we have not made anybody the judges of this election. It is the BJP government that is called in the observers. And this is a question you must be asking the BJP spokesperson, saying, shouldn't the people of Jammu and Kashmir be the election observers rather than foreign diplomats who you're getting somehow from different countries and desperately trying to get that Western, somehow we need that, they need the Western validation, which they also put in very selectively. So this is a question you need to ask the BJP spokesperson. We have not gotten them.
No,
The BJP
I asked
spokesperson.
Ajay Alok this, but let me get the other two guests also before I go back to the political spokespersons. Aarti Singh Tikku, on both those points, Ifra Jan says this is a guided tour. You take exactly where these observers should go. You show them the nice parts of Kashmir, and then you send them back home. How do you respond to that? And second, if you're so confident about the ground situation in Kashmir, why don't you allow foreign journalists to travel there and to report from there?
Well, Zaka, first of all, let me tell you, I've been in Kashmir in last month and this month as well, and I've been going around talking to people. And what I can really tell your audience today is that it is a moment of celebration because I did not see any security forces. I did not see any kind of rioting, stone pelting, any kind of violence anywhere. And it almost felt like as if I was witnessing polling in any urban center of India, anywhere in the country, actually. So that is, I think we should pat ourselves in the back. I think we have done something commendable nationally, and even we have an occasion to showcase our democracy, especially at a juncture when the democratic world is in itself a moment of crisis. We have seen how elections in the United States of America, the self-proclaimed oldest democracy of the world, in fact, the elections have been controversial, and India has every reason and incentive to showcase its democracy. We have nothing to hide. Second, about the guided tour, it is really ironic that the national conference, starting from Sheikh Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah, and now to Omar Abdullah, never objected about American diplomats, American journalists, the UK diplomats and journalists coming in. In fact, Sheikh Abdullah was hobnobbing with some of them from early on, and that's why Sheikh Abdullah had eventually was incarcerated for his seditious statements and his role. Apart from that, this guided tour again is very strange. This allegation.
Okay.
The fact is that United Nations Military Observer Group, whose office is next to Farooq Abdullah's house here in Gupkar Road, I never saw Farooq Abdullah or Omar Abdullah objecting to that office. I never saw them saying that why is this international organization sitting here? I never saw them saying that why. In fact, they are the ones who are repeatedly seeking international intervention.
Okay.
They are asking India to have a conversation with Pakistan, whereas Pakistan actually is not even a party in Kashmir.
Okay.
The only issue that India has is actually of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, on which both father and son have been completely silent. But third point, Zaka, just give me one more minute. In fact, in the last 35 years, there have been guided tours of journalists coming from UK, Europe, US, who were guided by either the JKLF or the Hurriyat Conference or people sympathetic to National Conference. And the guided tour eventually produced anti-India hatred, anti-India bigotry, and a complete anti-India narrative. I think that's the kind of guided tour the National Conference actually
So
likes.
let me ask Professor Amitabh Mattu. Professor Amitabh Mattu, there are again two parts to this. The fact that this cycle of elections is happening for the first time in almost a decade now, and certainly the first time after the abrogation of Article 370, when there was a lot of concern about whether or not it'll spiral into violence, whether there will be terrorist incidents that would derail the polls. In fact, one of the reasons why it was so delayed was because of these security concerns. The fact that at least the first two phases have passed off very peacefully, like I said, no known large instance of violence. The participation rate, the turnout has been fairly high, above 60%, irrespective of who is observing it, who has been given access to where, what rosy picture or non-rosy picture of Kashmir is being presented and by who. Shouldn't this itself be a celebration of the fact that democracy in some form has come back to the Kashmir Valley, and it is seeming on the face of it free, fair and certainly peaceful? Shouldn't that itself be celebrated by across the political mainstream, and particularly the mainstream political parties in Kashmir?
Let me put your question in a context, Zaka. First of all, I think there is a global trend towards having observers for elections. There are nearly 30 organizations, and I have been actually part of a delegation to observe elections in various parts of the world. So there are NGOs being invited, academics being invited. So there is this trend, which is not a way of just validating, but just to also showcase, more importantly, to share best practices. So this is not unique. Of course, it's happening in Jammu and Kashmir, and that is something that is exciting. And in an ideal world, hopefully, you'll allow journalists, when the security situation is appropriate, to allow them to cover the elections as well. But I think this is a great beginning, that you have a large number of foreign diplomats. And remember, they have their own credibility at stake. They will not rush off to issue propaganda statements just because they're there in Kashmir right now. Secondly, I agree with you completely, and I think this was the point made earlier also. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. The fact that you have had two phases of polls happening in Kashmir, where 50 seats have already gone to the polls, and there have been no accusations of malpractices by any of the major parties or even one of the minor parties. All that there is talk about is whether New Delhi is supporting one party or the other, but that's street gossip in Srinagar. It is, frankly, in my lifetime, I have never seen, and I'm not in the valley, let me also add that, the most inclusive elections, because you have not only the full spectrum of public opinion in Kashmir or Jammu and Kashmir represented in terms of the candidates, but also in terms of polling. Who could have imagined that even a contest, even a constituency which had a large section of Kashmiri Pandits would have double-digit figures in terms of polling?
Yeah.
Even Srinagar, you begin to see whether it is Lal Chowk or whether it's Chandpura or whether it is other constituencies, you have a large turnout. And as you said, peaceful, without pressure, free and fair. Frankly, we should be celebrating this movement. This is not the end of the road. This is not the arrival of Naya Kashmir, but this is a celebration of people's desire to have an elected government and a willingness to actually go out and vote. And hopefully, you will have statehood restored to Jammu and Kashmir, and you can then have a much more empowered assembly. But frankly, there will be contrarians. You have to give space in a democracy for dissent and for the kind of voices which might say, oh, ideally we should have had more observers, or ideally, why do we need validation? But this is a global trend, frankly speaking. Everyone goes and observes elections wherever they are. I have done so in Central Asia and elsewhere. For observers, I think it's a very exciting cultural as well as a political experience.
You know, Ifra Jan, you got to please respond to what Dr. Mattu is saying. I mean, he's not coming from a political partisan, spokesperson. He's somebody who has observed and has been a student of Kashmir politics for the last 30, 40 years. And if he's saying that this is the most peaceful election he's seen in his lifetime, surely there must, I mean, for me in this program, I can't think of a better validation for what a good election cycle this has been. Please respond to that.
I think, Zaka, number one, I would like to say this is not a comment on any of my esteemed co-panelists, but none of us really are apolitical or completely non-political. We clearly have our own political biases, and we, of course, do show those biases when we come and speak. And I wasn't in national conference all my life. I was also a non-political person, but that's beyond the question. First things first, what I got to hear from this discussion is that we will allow the foreign diplomats to come in because they will present the kind of picture we want them to see and what we want presented. But we will not have the foreign journalists because they will do propaganda and they will build an anti-India narrative. So, okay, that point is clear. We will decide who comes and sees what we want to showcase. Therefore, we will get to decide what the report is going to be.
But that inherently assumes, Ifra, that the diplomats are going to be parroting the line of government of India. You are undermining, who they are and what.
I honestly would want to speak without interrupting.
No, I also have limited time, so I need to go to Ajay Alok also after this.
That's first.
So quickly,
thing.
please.
Okay, second thing, you talked about free and fair election. Right after the Lok Sabha election, when we saw people coming out in large numbers, Government of India, BJP government for that matter, using its exclusive parliamentary powers, read down whatever little powers people of Jammu and Kashmir had in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. And it gave more powers to the Lieutenant Governor. It literally left people of Jammu and Kashmir with no powers. Which is why you see that in these elections, you actually have a lower voter turnout than what you did 2 months back. Is this a free and fair election where you...
Anyway, again, I have covered many elections in my life. One thing I've learned is never compare a Lok Sabha election with an assembly election. Anyway, I'm really running out of time. But Ajay Alok, to the point that Ifra Jan and other critics against the central government are making is that you often dismiss foreign commentary, articles written by Western press like New York Times, Washington Post. You say you don't subscribe to those views, you don't care about those views. But simultaneously, by giving out these invitations, by bringing these diplomats, you are seeking foreign validation for Naya Kashmir. How do you respond to that criticism? No, let Ajay Alok respond, please. Thank you.
First of all, this is new India. We don't need a validity certificate from any other country. Like I said, what we did was to showcase our democracy, the strength of our democracy, the depth of our democracy, and that ANC cannot understood. Now, my Congress friend must clear his position right now because National Conference wants to bring back Article 370. Is Congress is with them or not with them? That point must be made clear. Rahul Gandhi is with Omar Abdullah on this part, that Article 370 is going to be restored. Because whatever development we have seen, whatever the decrease in the terrorist activities, or for that matter, any ill-gotten activities has come down. It's just after the abrogation of Article 370. Now, here's the manifesto who claims we should have a talk to Pakistan. We will abrogate, we will restore Article 370. What is the stand of Congress? That should be very clear because Rahul Gandhi goes there and he gives just statements on the line of separatists. He says, यहाँ पे कोई बाहरी आके राज कर रहा है. What does that mean? Doesn't he consider Kashmir as an integral part of India? कि कोई बाहरी आके राज कर रहा है. He tries to instigate people on the wrong lines, which is dangerous trend.
Okay, I have 30 seconds, Amitabh Dubey. Quick response because he invoked your party.
Rahul Gandhi is talking about the fact that an unelected LG has been given all power in the state, which has been downgraded to union territory, not been given its rightful role as a state. This entire narrative, like I said, we celebrate the fact that this is a successful election. But let us remember that in 2008, the election turnout was higher at 60%. In 2014, it was 66%.
What about
Today,
on
it was
the 370
Article
question?
370, we have repeatedly said it is not on our agenda. Just like the BJP, when it allied with the PDP, did not bring the Pakistani rupee in and other proposals that the PDP has made.
Okay.
We will form a government with our alliance partners.
All right, we'll leave it at that. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time.